The air on Thalos 4 was heavy with curiosity today. A peculiar discovery beneath its ancient dry soil had drawn the attention of alien scholars, archaeologists, students, and historians from across the stars. There was a certain reverence in the way they moved, careful, quiet, as if the planet itself still whispered echoes of what it had once witnessed. Thalos the Four was not just any planet. It was sacred ground, a place where history had bled into legend. 1,000 years ago, this world bore witness to humanity's final stand in the Great Galactic War against the ruthless and overwhelming force known as the Xeric Swarm. While countless species had fought, faltered, and risen again, it was human leadership, human resolve, and human sacrifice that turned the tide of annihilation. Their strategies were unpredictable, their defiance unmatched. It was not just their weapons, but their will that bent the arc of history. But when the war ended, humanity vanished. Some believed they had lost too much, that the cost of victory had driven them to a distant refuge where they now recover in silence. Others claimed they perished in the aftermath, extinguished not by enemies but by the weight of their own sacrifice. And there are those who whisper that they never left, that they watch from the shadows, unseen but ever vigilant. The truth remains a mystery, even after a millennium, but the memory of that last stand has not faded. And so Thalos 4 became a memorial world, preserved in full, its battlefields untouched, its ruins sealed beneath atmospheric domes. The planet itself was transformed into a museum, a living archive of humanity's final chapter. Pilgrims, students, and veterans alike come here not just to study, but to feel. And today that feeling had shifted. Something new had been found, something untouched, something that might speak of the ones who vanished, or of what they left behind. The landscape lay frozen, a snapshot of ruin. Crumbling bunkers sat half-swallowed by the dust, their ferrocrete walls blistered from orbital bombardment. Rusted war machines lay scattered like broken bones of forgotten titans, their guns long silent. Yet, beneath the silence, the faintest hum of ancient Terran energy signatures still pulsed deep in the soil, flickers of a time when this world burned with defiance. This sector of Thalos 4 had been explored before, mapped and categorized decades ago. But today, just meters beneath the surface of an unassuming crater wall, a brushstroke of anomaly had emerged. The excavation team had worked in hushed coordination, not expecting much. Then came the whisper of old cloth, the brittle curve of vertebrae, and the unmistakable symmetry of human design. A collective breath caught. An archaeologist gently swept away a final layer of sediment, and there it was. A skeletal canine, curled protectively atop a shallow human grave. Its posture was unmistakable, ribs arched around what had once been a chest, muzzle tucked against where a face might have rested. Beneath it, fragments of a decayed human uniform emerged, with faint traces of Terran rank patches barely discernible in the dust. Microsensors ran quick scans. The results returned in moments. Lifeform, Canis lupus familiaris. Status, deceased. Time of death, approximately 990 standard years ago. Human remains detected beneath. DNA integrity within analyzable range. Probable soldier class. A tremor of wonder passed through the team. The students gathered near the edge of the excavation platform, eyes wide with intrigue, antennae twitching, ocular lenses adjusting, and tendrils curling in various signs of curiosity. The safety field shimmered faintly between them and the exposed burial. Tisha, a Zerathian, a species long believed to be devoid of emotion, tilted her head in puzzlement. "Why does the grave look so rough, so hastily made?" she asked, genuinely curious. Velar, the feathered Sexian, glanced up from the data console and followed her gaze. His feathers ruffled thoughtfully. Given the positioning, it might have been improvised. A field burial. And look, this quadruped. A biological asset, perhaps? The humans did use animals for scent tracking and battlefield triage support. Chorin, her gill frills pulsing in thought, gave a small hum. Could be ceremonial. Some species inter their domestics as status symbols. A pet interred with its master to signify rank or wealth. Roos, ever the pragmatist, shook his cranial crest. No, too close. See the position of the forelimbs? The creature was placed on top. Unorthodox burial logic. Perhaps a field emergency. Both died in the same blast radius and were hastily buried. Vela nodded. Possible. Or perhaps it was bait. A common guerrilla tactic: rig corpses with explosives, use organic forms to draw enemy rescue teams. Chorin frowned. Even the humans wouldn't. Why not? Roos cut in. They were creative, brutal when required. That's why they won. Instructor Calrex, silent until now, crouched closer to the edge. His compound eyes reflected the grave in 1,000 fragmented pieces. None of these are answers, he said. Only guesses. We must wait. There may be internal logs, personal records, and the soil still registers energy traces. A pause passed between them. Then Chorin murmured, I didn't think humans buried their animals with them. They didn't always, Calrex replied. But humanity was not a species of absolutes. The scanning drones continued their work, brushing away the centuries, line by line, toward whatever truth remained sealed in the dust, until the excavation drones chimed again, this time louder, sharper. From beneath the sediment near the base of the grave, a flicker of gold caught the light. A small data core, cracked but intact, was gently extracted. Moments later, a second find followed. The shattered remains of a hardened helmet-mounted camera, its lens cracked, casing warped by heat. But it still bore the insignia of the United Terran Defense Command. Faded, but unmistakable. The Archaeotech team moved swiftly, their tentacles and gloved digits carefully transferring the items to the on-site recovery module. Specialized nanofilaments threaded through fractured circuitry, coaxing dormant energy to flicker once more. Decay-resistant Terran alloys had preserved more than expected. Terran devices were known for their durability, even after centuries. Instructor Calrex stood back, arms crossed as he addressed the gathered students. We're attempting to recover whatever can be salvaged: visual, audio, motion sensors, internal logs. These systems were designed to function even during communications blackouts. If we're fortunate, this may give us insight not just into the moment of death, but the final hours. A hush fell over the group. Inside the viewing dome, the hollow screen shimmered to life, lines of data scrolling, flickering, resolving into structure. One panel lit up with motion telemetry logs, another with biometric data. Then a timestamp. Subject ID Sergeant Jacob Mason. Codename Alpha 7, assignment Command Relay Station, Outpost Vermilion 4B. Location Thalos 4, Eastern Continental Ridge. Status last known human presence at these coordinates, Alpha 7. Chorin whispered. Roos narrowed his eyes. This was a remote relay site, not frontline. That explains the lack of heavy machinery. Vela added, more importantly, a site like this would have coordinated encrypted signals, strategic last-mile communications. Calrex nodded. A critical node. During the collapse of the Eastern Front, it likely became one of the final fallback positions. Commanders would have left it staffed for as long as possible. As the logs decoded further, new entries scrolled past. Short, fragmented text strings, partial voice memos, biometric syncs between Alpha 7 and another life form. A secondary entry identified Unit Designation, Canine Companion, SAR Class German Shepherd. Name Luna. Status Bonded, Sergeant Jacob Mason. A few of the students leaned closer. A canine. Not just for scent work, murmured Calrex. SAR class, that's search and rescue, possibly trained in casualty retrieval, environmental hazard detection, and emotional support. Another biometric log flashed across the screen. Heart rate variance, adrenaline levels, voice stress markers. Final entry. All units to regroup at Delta. Confirmation received. All personnel withdrawn, except Alpha 7. K9 unit refused evacuation. No one spoke for a moment. Vela blinked, puzzled. Refused? Was it injured? Calrex answered softly, no, she stayed. The students stared as the logs continued to unravel, showing that Sergeant Jacob Mason had remained behind with Luna. Alone, the rest of the base had evacuated. The war above, outside, everywhere was ending. He had been the last, and the dog had not left his side. The hollow screen flickered, its light casting fractured shadows across the faces of the excavation team. The recovered data core, cracked but resilient, had begun to yield its deepest secrets. The students, scholars, and instructor Calrex stood transfixed, their breaths shallow, as the final logs of Sergeant Jacob Mason, Alpha 7, and his canine companion Luna unfolded before them. The logs revealed a desperate order. Alpha 7 was to relay one final encrypted message from Outpost Vermilion 4B, then evacuate to Rendezvous Point Delta, 77 kilometers west, within 12 hours. A Terran dropship would extract the last personnel from position Delta as the Xyrix swarm closed in. The timestamp showed Jacob and Luna moving swiftly through the bunker's corridors, the dog's paws clicking softly against the ferrocrete, her ears alert. Then, chaos. A piercing screech split the audio log. A Xyrix fighter, crippled in the skies above, plummeting into the bunker. The video feed from Jacob's helmet camera juddered violently as the structure collapsed. Dust and debris choked the frame. When the image cleared, Jacob was pinned beneath a slab of twisted metal and concrete, his legs crushed. His breaths came in sharp, ragged gasps, pain etched into every sound. He was breathing hard, gripping a comlink with shaking fingers. Relay point, Vermilion 4B compromised. A Xyrixi vessel impacted the ridge. Repeat, I am pinned. No chance of survival. Request evac for K9. Luna was unharmed, circling him, her whimpers low and urgent. The camera caught her frantic paws scraping at the wreckage. She tugged at Jacob's sleeve, whined, circled, then tried again, clawing at the slab that held him down. Jacob coughed. Luna, no! Stop! You can't! Jacob's voice, hoarse but steady, broke through the static. They're not coming, girl. It's just not possible. You have to do it yourself. His voice now commanding, firm. Luna, go! Rendezvous point Delta. You know the way, girl. Go! Her ears flicked back, but she didn't move. She pressed her muzzle against his chest, her body trembling. Jacob's hand, shaking, reached for her collar, trying to push her away. That's an order, Luna. Get out of here! The feed showed her hesitate, her brown eyes locked on his. Then, slowly, she turned and loped into the dust-choked distance. For a moment, it seemed she had obeyed. The students in the viewing dome leaned closer, their expressions a mix of awe and dread. Chorin's gill frills quivered, her voice barely a whisper. She followed the order. Calrex said nothing, his compound eyes unreadable. The video timestamp jumped forward 7 hours. The sound of paws crunching through ash announced Luna's return. She emerged from the haze, her fur matted with soot, a ration pack and a medkit clamped in her jaws. She dropped them beside Jacob and nudged them toward him with her nose, her tail giving a faint, hopeful wag. Jacob stared at the supplies, his face crumpling. His voice cracked, a mix of anguish and disbelief. You stupid dog! Why'd you come back? You were supposed to go. He reached for her, his gloved hand trembling as he pulled her close. Luna pressed herself against him, her head resting on his chest. Tears streaked through the grime on Jacob's face as he clutched her fur, his voice breaking into sobs. You were supposed to leave, Luna. You were supposed to make it. The hollow screen dimmed, but the scene lingered in the silence of the dome. Velar, the Sexian, looked away, her feathers ruffling as if to hide her face. Roos, the pragmatist, stood rigid, his cranial crest twitching. Chorin's gills pulsed rapidly, her hands clasped tightly. Even Instructor Calrex's mandibles clicked softly, a rare sign of unrest. But it was Tisha, the Zorathian, who drew every eye. Her species was known for their stoic, near-emotionless demeanor, their crystalline exoskeletons reflecting only logic and precision. Yet now a faint shimmer of liquid traced a path down her faceted cheek. She raised a claw to brush it away, her voice a low hum. I do not understand this response, she said, almost to herself. No one answered. The hollow screen flickered back to life, pulling them into the past once more. The logs chronicled 3 days, 3 agonizing days. Each morning, Luna set out, her paws pounding across miles of ash and ruin, searching for help, for rations, for anything to sustain her handler. She returned each evening, her body thinner, her fur singed by the planet's harsh winds, carrying scraps of food or bandages scavenged from abandoned outposts. Each time she curled beside Jacob, her warmth a fleeting shield against the cold seeping into his bones. The video feed from the second day showed Jacob weaker, his voice a whisper. He stroked Luna's head as she lay beside him, her eyes never leaving his face. You're so damn stubborn, he murmured, a faint smile flickering. Should have gone to Delta, should have saved yourself. His hand stilled, his voice softening. But I'm glad you're here, girl. I didn't want to die alone. Luna whimpered, her nose nudging his chin. The sound was raw, a keening that seemed to carry all the grief she couldn't speak. By the third day, Jacob's breaths were shallow, his face pale beneath the dust. The camera caught his final words, barely audible over the wind howling through the ruins. Luna, you're the best thing I ever had. I'm sorry I couldn't get us out. But you gotta live, okay? You gotta try." He coughed, his hand weakly gripping her fur. "Thank you for staying. I love you, girl." Luna pressed closer, her body shaking as she licked his face, a soft whine rising in her throat. Jacob's hand fell limp, his chest stilling. The timestamp marked his time of death, 990 years ago, under a sky choked with ash. For a moment, Luna was still, her nose pressed to his cheek. Then she lifted her head, her ears flattening, and let out a howl, a sound so raw, so piercing, it seemed to tear through the centuries. None of the aliens spoke. One of the students, a young Drevi, could be heard sobbing quietly, his normally colourless skin flushed with emotion. Tisha turned away, blinking rapidly, while others simply stared, silent and stunned, eyes wet with tears they didn't know they could shed. The howling of Luna lasted nearly an hour, rising and falling, a lament that echoed through the shattered bunker. Even when her voice broke, she didn't stop, her body curled protectively over Jacob's, as if her grief could keep him there. The next recovered log played automatically, grainy at first, but steadily sharpening. No voices, just the slow, deliberate scrape of claws against soil and broken stone. Luna was digging. Her paws, raw and reddened, pulled dirt over Jacob's still form. She paused once to nudge his arm gently beneath the earth, as if trying to tuck him in. Then she lay beside the shallow grave, her body curled against the fresh mound, her breath steady but slow, ears twitching, eyes hollow. The hologram froze on that final frame, dust-covered dog. A single grave. No ceremony. No flag. Only love. Tisha's voice cracked. Her lower mandibles quivered. That's why the grave looked so hastily made. She wiped at her crystalline cheek, surprised to feel moisture. It was made by an animal. The room fell into stunned silence. Even the always cynical Dravari historian at the back folded their forearms across their chest and looked away, jaw tight. The hollow screen pulsed once more, its light dim but unwavering as the final fragments of the data core's logs unravelled. The excavation team, already shaken by Luna's burial of Sergeant Jacob Mason, leaned closer, their eyes reflecting the glow of a story that refused to end. The logs shifted to a new set of sensor data, pieced together from the bunker's environmental monitors and the still-working Terran beacon, which had silently recorded the aftermath. The war had ended weeks after Jacob's death. The Xyric swarm's defeat was sealed, and Thalos 4 was evacuated, its skies falling silent as the last Terran dropships fled. Yet the sensor data told a different story, one of a single life that remained. Luna, the German shepherd, had not left. For 7 years she endured. The logs chronicled her movements, paw prints etched in the ash, tracked by motion sensors as she hunted small rodents skittering through the ruins. She drank from a nearby stream, its waters cutting through the scarred landscape like a lifeline. Each day, without fail, she returned to Jacob's grave, her body curling atop the mound of earth she had so carefully shaped. The sensors captured her low whines, her nose pressed to the soil as if she could still sense him beneath. For 7 years the logs recorded her daily cries, a mournful ritual unbroken until her very end. The hollow screen's last image was of Luna on the grave, in the same position as she was found today, her skeletal form a silent sentinel over her handler's resting place. Her vitals ceased. The beacon's amber light pulsed once, then dimmed. The students in the viewing dome stood frozen, their breaths caught in their throats. Tisha, the Zarathian, stood trembling, her crystalline tears catching the light as she brushed them away. 7 years, she whispered, her voice fracturing. To mourn every day, to guard him until her end. What is this devotion? Velar's feathers drooped, her eyes glistening with uncharacteristic softness. We study bonds, alliances, survival strategies, she said, her voice barely above a murmur. But this is something else, something sacred. Roos, his cranial crest quivering, turned to the console, cross-referencing ancient Terran records. They called it man's best friend, he read aloud. Now I see why. His tone was heavy with awe. This canine, this Luna, chose to stay, bound by something stronger than survival. Corin's gill frills pulsed erratically, her gaze fixed on the hollow screen's frozen image. We have no equivalent, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Our species form alliances, but they are fleeting, pragmatic. This is eternal. They turned to the excavation site below, where Jacob and Luna's remains lay entwined in the dust, the dog's bones still cradling her handler's memory. A collective awe settled over them, a reverence that transcended their differences. Calrex stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with resolve. "This site will not be catalogued as a mere war relic," he declared. "It is a monument to a bond that outlasted time, species, and the desolation of this world." Velar, Roos, Chorin, Tisha, and Instructor Calrex stood in awe, their scientific detachment shattered by the depth of her loyalty. The faint amber pulse of the Terran beacon, accidentally triggered by the young Sexian student Velar's assistant, Soren, blinked steadily on the recovery module. Its hum was a quiet intrusion, barely noticed until Soren's claw brushed it again, and the light flared brighter, emitting a sharp, rhythmic pulse. A low chime echoed through the dome, and the beacon's signal spiked, broadcasting a coded frequency into the void. "Soren!" Calrex's mandibles snapped, his compound eyes narrowing. "Careless! That beacon is a relic. Handle it with precision." Soren's feathers flattened, her small frame shrinking under the reprimand. I didn't mean to. Instructor. It just activated." Calrex's voice softened, but his tone remained firm. "It holds no value now. The humans are gone. No one will answer a signal from a world abandoned 1,000 years ago." Tisha, her crystalline tears dried, but her faceted cheeks still shimmering, tilted her head. 1,000 years, and yet it still functions. Terran engineering was remarkable. Roos, ever pragmatic, crossed his arms, his cranial crest rigid. A futile gesture. Even if it broadcasts, who would hear it? The galaxy moved on. Chorin's gill frills pulsed faintly, her eyes lingering on the beacon. Still, it feels wrong to dismiss it. It was theirs, his, hers. The team stood frozen, their scientific detachment shattered. Instructor Calrex's compound eyes reflected the faint glow of the beacon Soren had accidentally triggered, its amber light blinking unnoticed. "What was this species, humanity," he said softly, "that could inspire such unbreakable loyalty in another?" The team returned their gaze to the excavation site below. The beacon's pulse continued, unnoticed, its signal threading through the stars. Hours passed, the team cataloguing artifacts and debating Luna's vigil. Then a low rumble shook the dome, a vibration that thrummed through the ferrocrete floor. The students froze, their sensory organs, feathers, crests, gills, and crystalline facets quivering in alarm. Outside, the ash-choked sky of Thalos IV parted, and a sleek obsidian ship descended, its hull shimmering with an iridescence that defied known alloys. Its design was alien yet hauntingly familiar, too advanced for any catalogued species, its lines sleek and purposeful, glowing with a soft blue-white energy. The dome's sensors blared warnings of an unauthorized landing. Vela's feathers flared, her voice sharp. "That's no salvage craft. No known faction uses that tech." Roos's crest twitched, his eyes narrowing. "A scavenger? Or something else?" Tisha's claws clicked nervously, her crystalline voice trembling. The beacon. It reached someone. Calrex stepped forward, his mandibles still. Impossible. The humans vanished. This must be. The ship's hatch hissed open, cutting him off. A ramp extended, and figures emerged, their silhouettes tall and bipedal, moving with a disciplined grace. The team's collective breath caught as the figures stepped into the light. Humans. Their attire was unfamiliar, a blend of sleek, form-fitting fabric and advanced armor, but their faces, their posture, their very presence screamed humanity. At their head was a senior figure, his hair silvered, his uniform adorned with insignia that echoed the faded Terran Defense Command patch on Jacob's remains. His eyes, sharp and weathered, scanned the dome with a quiet intensity. The aliens stood frozen, their minds racing. Velar's feathers trembled, her thoughts a whirlwind. "Humans? Here? After a millennium, where have they been?" Roos's crest quivered, his pragmatism faltering. "This defies all records. Did they hide, evolve, or were they watching us all along?" Chorin's gills pulsed rapidly, her voice a whisper. "Their technology, it's beyond anything we've seen. Have they surpassed us?" Tisha's crystalline form shimmered, her tears threatening to return. "They're alive, but how? And why now?" The lead human stepped forward. His name tag read General Asher Mendez, his gaze settling on the beacon still pulsing on the recovery module. He approached it, his gloved hand brushing its surface with a reverence that silenced the room. "Thank you," he said, his voice low but clear, carrying a weight that seemed to echo across centuries. This beacon, it was Jacob Mason's. Each one was uniquely coded to its handler. When it activated, we knew one of ours needed help. Calrex found his voice, though it wavered. You're human. You survived. Where have you been? The human's eyes softened, but he offered no answer. Instead, he turned to the excavation site. Alpha 7, he murmured, using Jacob's code name, and Luna. Then he gestured something to his team. The humans moved with precision, deploying compact devices that hummed with advanced technology. Nanofabricators whirred, drawing from the planet's dust to weave a sleek, obsidian-like tomb over Jacob and Luna's grave. Intricate carvings emerged, Terran symbols of valor, a silhouette of a human and a dog standing side by side, and a single inscription spanning both tombs, etched in precise, glowing script. Bound by loyalty, united in eternity, Jacob Mason and Luna forever at rest. Tisha's voice trembled. Not just a soldier, not just a canine. They're equals in this monument, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the words. Within minutes the tomb stood complete, its surface gleaming under Thalos 4's dim sun, a monument worthy of their sacrifice. Asher Mendez knelt before the tomb, placing a hand on its surface. His team followed, their heads bowed in silent tribute. The aliens watched, their hearts stirred by the solemnity. A singular thought. They came back, for them. Velar's feathers settled, her gaze soft. They honor their dead even now, and the canine too, in equal measure. The aliens watched, transfixed, their questions burning. Tisha, her crystalline form trembling, stepped forward, her voice tentative. We saw the logs, Luna's vigil, 7 years mourning every day, guarding him until her end. Why? Why was she so loyal? Our species. We don't understand such a bond. Mendez turned, his eyes meeting hers. A faint smile touched his lips, tinged with sorrow. You want to know why Luna stayed? He gestured to the tomb, where the faint glow illuminated the entwined remains. It's not just about training or instinct. It's about what dogs and humans are to each other. He paused, his voice growing softer, richer with emotion. Dogs, they're not just animals to us. They're family, partners, pieces of our souls. We brought them into our homes millennia ago, not as tools, but as companions. We shared our fires, our food, our fears. They learned to read our hearts, our joy, our pain, our hope, and we learned theirs. There are stories, real ones, of dogs leaping into burning buildings to drag us out, refusing to leave our side even in fire or flood, and we've done the same. We've run into danger, risked our lives to save them too, because that's what love does. Luna wasn't just Jacob's K9 unit. She was his friend, his confidant, his reason to keep going when the war tore everything else away. The aliens leaned closer, their sensory organs quivering. Vela's feathers fluttered softly. But to stay, to mourn for 7 years, to die guarding him, that's beyond reason. The human nodded, his eyes glistening, because to her there was no life without him. Chorin's gill frills quivered, her voice barely audible. But 7 years, alone, her whole life. The human's gaze softened further, his hand resting on the tomb's surface. Dogs don't measure time like we do. Every day, she woke up hoping he'd come back, hoping she could protect him just a little longer. That's what they do. Love us when we're strong, love us when we're broken, love us when we're gone. Luna didn't see a wasteland. She saw home, because home was where Jacob was. Tisha's crystalline tears flowed freely now, her claws trembling. We thought humans were defined by their war, their sacrifice. But this is something more. Roos, his crest low, spoke quietly. Your records call them man's best friend. But this is beyond friendship. The human nodded, his voice thick. It's a bond we don't fully understand ourselves. We don't deserve it, but we're grateful for it. Every dog that's ever loved a human has taught us something about ourselves, about loyalty, about forgiveness, about living for something bigger than survival. Luna didn't just guard Jacob. She carried his memory, his heart, for 7 years. And now, thanks to you, we can carry hers. The dome was silent, the weight of his words settling over the team. Calrex's mandibles were still, his compound eyes reflecting the tomb's glow. We declared this site a monument, he said, not to war, but to this bond. Will you take it from us? The human shook his head. No. Thalos 4 is sacred ground. This tomb stays as a testament to Jacob and Luna, to what they meant to each other. We'll visit, we'll honor them, but this is their place. Vela's feathers trembled, her voice soft. And you? Where have you been? 1,000 years, and now you return. The human's smile was enigmatic, his eyes distant. We've been elsewhere, healing, rebuilding and watching, but we never forgot. The beacon brought us back, to this, to them. Before the aliens could press further, Mendez signaled his team. They boarded their ship. As the hatch started closing, Calrex called out, "Will we see you again?" Mendez paused, his silhouette framed by the ship's glow. "If you need us, we'll know." The aliens stood in awe, their questions unanswered, but their hearts full. The tomb glowed softly, its translucent surface catching the light of the beacon, which still pulsed faintly. The humans boarded their ship, General Asher Mendez casting one last look at the tomb before the hatch closed. The vessel rose, vanishing into the ash-streaked sky, leaving the aliens with the weight of a truth they could scarcely comprehend. Tisha's voice broke the silence, her tears shimmering. "They returned because of her, because of Luna." Chorin nodded, her gills still. "And because of him, their bond called them home." Roos, his pragmatism softened, murmured, "1,000 years, and it still holds." Calrex gazed at the tomb, his voice steady but reverent. "This is no longer just a memorial to war. It is a monument to something greater, a love that spans species, time, and the stars." The beacon's amber light pulsed one final time, then dimmed, its signal complete. Outside, the winds of Thalos Fall whispered through the ruins, carrying the echo of a dog's loyalty and a human's love, forever entwined in the dust.